Many of mankind's problems stems from his inability to find purpose. It's very unfortunate that many people, a staggering majority, have zero idea why they exist on this earth. A study was conducted by McKinsey in the early 1900s. The interviewer went to the streets asking average individuals going about their daily activities. So why did you get up today? Why did you go to work? I don't know, said the respondent. What do you mean you don't know? Everyone does it. At best, they hit you with the I need to pay my bills, I need to take care of my family, just surface level answers. And there's nothing wrong with that, I believe. It's a very, very responsible man's job to cater for his family. But majority lack purpose. I saw this YouTube short the other day, and very rarely do I engage in activities like this. I have no idea what I was thinking, but I clicked on it. A street interview. Excuse me, sir. Excuse me, sir. Hello. How are you today? Very well. Do you regret being born? 100%, said the man. In fact, if I had the power to cease to exist, I would utilize it. I remember pausing the video. My thought was, what can bring a man to the point where he detests his own existence, where he wishes death upon himself? The rational answer would be, oh, he doesn't have money, oh, he doesn't have this, he doesn't have that, focusing on external things. But internally, if you've been following this channel long enough, you understand we approach problems from a psychological standpoint. So we do not dwell on rational answers. When we probe further, you see that lack of purpose is the sponsor for these despondent thoughts. That someone will get to a point where he sees death as gain. I find it difficult to process those people who murder themselves, who commit suicide with mild, or those who commit suicide mildly. When I say mildly, I mean poison, sleeping pills, etc. The slow kill, as they term it in the suicide community. Slow kill. That you would actually watch yourself gasp for air desperately, and I can't fathom how people will get to that state where they jump off a building and they feel their bones breaking. It's terrible. I believe every single one of you should never consider suicide as an option. It is absolutely and utterly disgusting. It is terrible, in fact. What you're now saying is that your ancestors and your bloodline are distasteful because they went through all of that shit to survive, so that your lazy ass could be born in order for you to commit suicide and be disgraceful to your bloodline. Imagine you watching your bloodline and your ancestors fight with 1 round per ammunition during the Biafra wars and be malnourished because they couldn't buy food and they didn't have enough money to make purchases. Do you realize that the government bankrupted the Biafrans by changing the currency? So all of our money that we had saved as a war advantage, purchases for ammunition, etc., went down the drain. So what you're saying by committing suicide is all their efforts are flushed, that they shouldn't even bother. That's what you're invariably saying. Is that how you want to live? Imagine your parents who struggled to raise you, your dad who got up every single morning by 6 o'clock, went to a shitty job so that he could afford to pay off the mortgage, and send your stupid ass to school. Imagine how we would feel opening your room's door one day and seeing you laying helpless. Imagine your mother who carried you for 9 months and the struggle she went to push you out into this world. Yes, you might be feeling a little terrible. Yes, you might be feeling sad. My friends, it is all upon us. Those people you see on social media who look happy, 80% of the time, they are one of the most terrible people you can ever meet. So scrolling on social media is just a capture of people's happiest moments. Happiness is not the default state, even of any single person. As rich as Elon is, do you think he gives a shit about how he feels at the moment? As a man, you shouldn't even regard this thought. You shouldn't wake up and ask yourself, how happy I am. Because if you chase happiness, you will invariably end down the road of hedonism. Isn't it funny that chasing happiness often leads to sadness, while chasing difficulties and being sad in the moment often leads to happiness? Every single person who's chased a high knows that it eventually turns to low. It's like, this is so fun, this weed, and you're getting this stimulus and dopamine. On a long enough time frame, you'll be like, nah, this is pointless. Why do I even exist? Why am I doing this? Then you get into the motivational cycle of, I need to improve my life. I need to do this. You become motivated for 3 to 4 hours. Then you go back to the addiction. It's a terrible way to live. Especially if you secretly believe that you're going to improve your life one day. You're stuck in this loop of motivated, not motivated, bad habits, feeling bad about it, and repeat. And by some alchemy, you're wondering why you're not successful. Isn't this funny? And it's like a fighter who's memorized a set of losing fighting combinations and is taking that action, wondering why he's losing. It's very funny. And most people would see, they have seen their predecessors go through this same route. You would believe that the generation coming up is smart enough to discern and make corrections where it is due, but they don't. Why? I'm special, it can never happen to me. As delusional as this sounds, majority of you are stuck in that loop. You see, years ago, I would watch these boxing clips, and this idea of someone getting knocked out, that you can punch someone up onto the point where it's blank, was abstract. I couldn't fathom it. I couldn't get my mind around it until I started taking boxing classes. I can guarantee you, my friend, getting punched, getting knocked out is very, very real. Another layer of which we can approach it from is majority of you believe being inconsistent, although you know the consequence of that action, you believe it can never happen to you. So sometimes you do the work, sometimes you don't. Whenever you feel like your emotions dictate how you act. It's a terrible way to live, which you are currently aware of, but you do not change. You still remain undisciplined. You still hang around with those friends. You still do those things you know are not good for you. You lack the courage to say no. Isn't it funny that winners say no to protect their vision while losers say yes to avoid confrontation? You still do all of those things that connotes to failure, that connotes to a terrible life on a long enough horizon. Yet you somehow believe that the consequence is never going to catch up to you. Why? Because I'm me. There are 3 diseases for anyone listening to me who's seeking to improve his life, of which you should constantly be aware of and cure yourself permanently. The first one is doubt. Doubt. Will this even work? Why worry? And even worse on the ladder is self-doubt. The moment you decide to become better, the moment you begin to take action towards a productive route, all of a sudden your mind plays these subtle tricks by revealing a compilation of your previous failures and giving you different reasons why this would not work. Then you come with a justification of why it will not work for you. And when you see it work in the life of other people, you bring up different reasons of different externalities that played a role into the achievement of that result you so desperately desire. It's a terrible way to live. We are all sustained of the same materials. If I can do it, so can you. It is my philosophy of life. So doubting yourself has no benefit. You can't control any single thing in this world aside your thoughts and how you see yourself. So self-doubt is something you should rid yourself permanently of. Another thing, which is the second one, is overcautiousness. Majority of you are overcautious. You are walking on life, walking through life like eggshells, like tiptoeing, trying to avoid mistakes. But my friend, risk or security and opportunity are total strangers. You can't say you want a good life and yet you don't want to take risk. Risk and reward go hand in hand. Elon would have cashed out when he sold PayPal for $100 million, and I guarantee you $100 million in the early 2000s is worth a lot more than it is currently, and you and I wouldn't have known his name, but he decided to persist even after those 3 rocket failures. He was still at it. Many of you would look at his achievements and success today and say, well, I could have done it as well. My friend, the only reason you are brave enough to position yourself that place is because you know the end result. You know your success is guaranteed after 3 failures. But when everything was uncertain, however, when you're losing $100 million per explosion, at a point after the second or third failure, that thought is going to creep in and say, why don't you cash out? You spent millions of dollars on this project. Alright, you tried. It's impossible for an individual to do something like this. Then you would have gone down in history as the man who tried and failed. Life is binary, win or lose. Did you win? No one cares whether you tried or how hard you tried. What people care about is your end result. Imagine walking up to a chick at the bar and say, I'm trying so hard, or I tried so hard to become a billionaire. It didn't work. Like me. No, you're weird. Of course, no one gives a shit. Did you win? Oh, you won. Alright, let's hear your story. You went through this struggle. Oh, you did go through this struggle. Now I'm prepared to listen because you emerged victorious. Not necessarily because of the difficulty, but you emerged victorious. That's the prerequisite to solicit attention, that you emerged victorious. I remember the story of this man who wanted to get married, but he had a long list of how the lady should act, how many children she should be, what she should think like. He was very, very meticulous in the detail. Guess what? He died a bachelor. Because there are some times in life you just have to take risks. It's going to be very, very difficult, not impossible, for someone to check all those boxes, especially when you have 100 of them. So So there are sometimes you take risks. Overcautious is never going to do you any good. Another layer of overcautiousness, which is the third thing, is pessimism. Majority of you have this pessimistic approach of life, towards life. Whenever you endeavor to do something new, you have various reasons of why it would not work. As basic as this sounds, many of you are plagued with this problem. Plagued with doubt, overcautiousness, coupled with pessimism. Now that is a strategy for remaining a mediocre, miserable for a very, very long time. So my friend, pessimism is not going to do you any good. Of course, you should take calculated risk. I'm not saying be reckless. Recklessness is not wise in any regard. You should take calculated risk. You should be very careful before you leave. You should be prepared to take that financial decision. There are times of which you burn your bridge in order to take the island, but most often than not, that gut decision wouldn't be more than 3 to 4 times in your life. So keep taking bold action, and as Mark Zuckerberg would put it, double your failure rate is in the countless iterations that you see different problems to solve. It's like saying, this house takes a year to build. Let's try and build it in 3 months. All of a sudden, your team is going haywire. Different problems arises. So it's in the iteration, it's in the defiance of logic and physics that new philosophy stems out from. On this path and journey to personal development, who you become is twice as valuable than the goal. So even if the external results or the goal get taken away from you, you are the kind of person who's able to get it back because you didn't forget the lessons. There are 2 factors that gets us to take action. Number 1 is inspiration. Number 2 is desperation. So if after all my rantings, after all my labor, you did not get inspired, I hope your house burns to ashes. Yes, at least that might get you to take action. As always, my friends, it's a pleasure speaking to you. I'll see you next time.